And hello, welcome. So happy that you're with us today. We're going to have so much fun. I'm starting off on a sad note, though, which is that Father Sean's wife, Sharon Whittington, is having another surgery today. Her first surgery was on the 22nd, and this is her fourth procedure since then. And this has just turned into something really difficult and ongoing. And again, and I say it every week, all of your prayers and donations, everything, like that, all of your kindness is appreciated more than you could possibly imagine at this time. And I'm going to have a link, I'm putting it right now, for the GoFundMe for Sharon. Um, and then after the show, when the comments are closed from our live show, I'll put it in the recorded, show that people can see it in the comments there. And thank you so much. It's been just a really big ordeal and scary and very difficult. And we appreciate that, everyone who takes a minute to think of them at this time. Father Shawn Whittington is a priest with the United States Old Catholic Church. You may know him from his show that he was on Travel Channel. Eli Roth presents The Legion of Exorcists. And that show is now being streamed on Max and Discovery Plus. You can catch up on all the episodes. Very, very scary, very interesting show that features real cases. There's 6 exorcists, and each show is 1 hour, and it's 2 stories. So you're getting the cases from 6 different people. One of those is Father Shawn. Father Shawn is also an author. Um, he has 2 books, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry, volumes 1 and 2. Um, these are some of the scariest books I've ever done. I know I say that every week. Each chapter is a personal account of his, and very nicely written. I've got the volume 2 right here. Very, very nicely done, very interesting stories, scary, things that you could not even imagine. So that is available. Both of those books are available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Besides that, you can get them at Father Shawn's website, and his website is ghostbegone.biz. That's ghost dash B, just the word, not the word, the letter. I'm a book girl, I should know better than that. Ghost dash letter B dash gone.biz. You can get them from Father Shawn there and get a signed copy. We also have our book that we did last fall, Help Me, I'm Haunted. And that book is a compilation that we wrote on different topics that came up a lot in our mailbag. And each of those topics became a chapter. And he wrote on the chapter first, then I wrote my thoughts, and then we had guest writers on all of the chapters. And one of the guest writers is with us today, Karl Sup. Now, Karl is just a delightful guest. He's a elite squatcher. We put that in his description. He's our Bigfoot guy, elite squatcher, but also all around paranormal person, experiencer, UFO, UAP, and he talks brilliantly on all of these topics. And I am going to introduce myself last. I'm Father Shawn's co-host, Annette Munich, and I am the owner of Stellium Books. I'm his publisher. And if anyone would want to contact me, annette.munich@gmail.com. And that is ANNETTE.MUNNICH@gmail.com. And I'm doing that precisely because I really miss everybody's letters. He still gets some letters, but I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the people connecting, commenting, asking for advice. A lot of you listening in your car. I also welcome you to friend me up on Facebook. I love that. And some of our Facebook friends are in our chat room right now. And we've got, I'm going to say it wrong, we got Safina. I've been calling her Nagy, and that makes her laugh. So we'll call her Nagy again. But Safina is here, and Honey is here. Honey is actually my cousin's daughter. And Safina is here saying hello from Hungary. And she says, we are praying for Sharon. And we've got Linda. And we've got Heidi. I have to say to Heidi, hey girl, hey. And the heart is, we just love Heidi. She's wonderful. Now, having said all of that long introduction, the moment you've been waiting for, we're going to bring Karl up from. You can come out of the closet, Karl.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome. So happy to have you. We always have a good time. We always have.
Absolutely, absolutely. We always have fun here, right? And that's
we always do.
That's the whole point, right? The whole point of life is to collaborate and talk with each other and have a great time. So
absolutely. And I'm gonna say what happened. Karl was recently on another show. It was a very lovely show called Piercing the Veil. I've gone back there without you, by the way. I saw that they were live and I dropped in. I was like, I wonder what they're talking about. Anyway, so Karl's on there and talking about all kinds of things that I had no idea that he could talk on. And that was so interesting. And then on another show that I went to recently, so I'll just pop in, um, and he started talking about, amongst other things, this very interesting portal story, the Quinn portal.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And both of those are kind of rooted in Arizona history, and I have some personal aspects to those as well. But it's super interesting. But yeah, as we enter this 4th of July weekend, our 250th anniversary, I actually wrote I wrote a little paragraph, my thoughts, at least dumping my thoughts on the 4th of July.
I absolutely love that you want to share that with us and you're willing. So I absolutely love that.
All right,
and we can start off with that, and that would be beautiful.
I'll kick it off. So I wrote. It's called "The Promise of July 4th." So 250 years ago, in the summer heat of Philadelphia, a small group of men placed their names on a document that changed the course of history. The men who signed that document were not perfect. They disagreed, they argued, faced enormous risks. By putting their names on that declaration, they were committing what the British Crown considered treason. Many would lose their fortunes, their freedom, and even their lives because of that. And yet they signed. And not because they knew success was guaranteed, but because they believed that liberty was worth the sacrifice. They did not sign because victory was certain. They signed because liberty was worth the risk. And they declared that a people should not be ruled by a distant power without a voice. And they declared that freedom was not a gift from kings, but a right entrusted by God and defended by citizens. And that was the promise of July 4th. So it was a promise carried by soldiers through winter fields, by families who sacrificed in silence, by generations who built, served, taught, prayed, labored, and sacrificed and dreamed beneath one flag. America has never been perfect, but from the beginning, America has been brave enough to believe it could become better. And this is why we gather on the 4th of July. We gather not only for the fireworks, the music, the family, and celebration, but to remember that freedom must be cherished, protected, and renewed. We gather to honor those who came before us and to accept our own responsibility to those who will come after us. On this 250th anniversary of America's independence, we stand in gratitude for the courage of 1776 and in hope for the promise of tomorrow. May we be worthy of the liberty we inherited. May we be united by the ideals that first gave this nation life. And may the light of freedom continue to shine from sea to shining sea for generations yet unborn. On this day, the question is not simply what our founders and ancestors achieved. The question is, what will we do with the freedoms they entrusted to us? So as the fireworks fade and the stars emerge above us in the night sky tomorrow night, the light first kindled in 1776 still burns. It's carried not in our buildings or our monuments, but in the hearts of the citizens who continue the unfinished work of liberty. God bless America.
That is so beautiful. Thank you. I love that. And for people to remember the spirit of this country. Of course, I come from a military family. My dad was Navy, two uncles that were Navy. My son-in-law's Air Force, and my daughter was National Guard. And people give so much, and they're willing to give so much,
Absolutely.
for our freedom. And it's just not just another hot dog day, right?
It is not.
It is not.
It is not. And my father was, he had volunteered for World War II, and he was in the Army Air Corps. And 2 hours short of being shipped off to England with a B-24, he was washed out and put into the Army and became a medic, and eventually ended up being one of the liberators of Dachau concentration camp.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What a story.
Yep, absolutely.
So Heidi says, love that, and thank you, Karl. And it was just very beautifully done, and we do love that. And what a perfect thing to have today, with tomorrow being the 4th.
Yep, absolutely. And earlier today, when I finished writing that off, I kid you not, I tried reading it to the family, and I couldn't get through it. I cried. So
Yeah.
that was a challenge today on this show.
Yeah, it's very heartfelt and touching. It means a lot. It means so much.
Yep.
Just the
Absolutely.
essence of everything. I think that you did a fabulous job on that. I'm so glad that you took the time and you were willing to share it with us. And very, very lovely words. Very inspirational.
Yep.
And here's Heidi with gratitude. And she says also, oh my, I honestly have tears now. And, I agree.
Yep.
It's very heartfelt.
Yep. So it's not quite a ask what not what you can do, what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
What you can do for your country, right? And also,
Yep,
wasn't
absolutely.
it Ronald Reagan that said, we are always just one generation away from losing our freedom? Am I saying that
he
correctly?
did, absolutely did.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And we can't give those freedoms up. That's very critical, right? I mean, those freedoms are God given to us, and not they're not dictated by any piece of paper. So
That was very beautiful. Carol said Safina in Hungary. And that's very lovely, that the feelings of patriotism, and it's not even her country. And we have several people that come here from other countries. Very lovely. I really enjoy them.
Well, and like I said, I've always been a historian and um, a story collector, and a lot of you know odd things have happened to me through my life. I'm definitely an experiencer on many things, but certainly one of my passions is Arizona history, and being a transplanted Arizonan from the Chicago area when I was a kid, um, and uh, the story of the Quinn or the Aravaka portal is it's one of those definite oddities, and I haven't been able to locate it yet, but I'll be working on that at some point, I'm sure.
Very interesting. So, this is a mysterious journey.
Yep, and so I'll get into it. So the Quinn portal, and the reason why it's called Quinn is because there was a story written up in the 1950s. There was a man named Ron Quinn who and his brother Chuck, who were treasure hunters, right? And they had came down, I believe, from Washington State, and they decided that they would go down to southern Arizona and look for, uh, based on Spanish stories. As you remember, Coronado actually led an expedition up into Arizona in the 1450s, and in that 1450s, and then on, there was stories. Let's say a mule, became lame and couldn't carry, the you know gold payload or gold payroll, coming in or out of the South American Southwest down to Mexico City. So these two brothers, decided to go out in search of and kind of follow up on some of those missing treasure stories, right? From and a lot of those I know are detailed in a book that was published in the 1930s called Coronado's Children. I have a first edition copy of that, of course, and my house is completely loaded up with books and definitely interesting things, including an 1850 U.S. history school book. It was probably a collegiate book, but it was as thick as my children's American history book. So you can imagine the extra detail that was included in that volume. But um, so these two brothers, uh, started exploring southern Arizona looking for some of these missing treasures, and uh, in that in that search, they actually ended up. They were camping near Arivaca, Arizona, um, and near the Tumacacori mountains down there. And the one evening, they actually saw several bluish green lights that were descending. Now, this is the 1950s. Descended. Well, some of the local Indians actually also told them, "Oh, we see those all the time." And as these two brothers were out in the wilderness that whole time, um, they actually witnessed those multiple times throughout their traverses in the mountain ranges there. But so that was, that's a little odd, right? Seeing, talking about UAPs and disclosure and everything else right now.
Right.
Just having these recurring, greenish blue lights in the mountains were, and I'm certainly in the 1950s that, you know, uh, that was very eye opening, right? We weren't quite as
Oh, for sure.
as we are today, but
Right.
one of the things they ended up discovering was this archway, this kind of natural archway. At least that's as the description says, but it was in the mountains as they were exploring that area, and they found this archway. But they noticed that when you know, at this one point there was a summer monsoon storm rolling in, and so the skies were dark and cloudy. But when you looked through this archway, the skies were clear as you could look through it. So
Whoa.
they reasoned it was like a different time. One of the local Indians, his name was John, ended up telling him that that's that it's been known going all the way back, and the Spanish even had some account in and around this this archway that was going all the way back into the 1630s, and where if you threw inanimate objects through it, rocks, whatever, it would it would just land on the other side of the archway when you threw it through. If you threw someone through a rabbit through there and the rabbit disappeared, the rabbit did not come out the other side.
Wow.
There was other stories where some cowboys back in back in the 1800s, kind of on a dare, one of the cowboys actually stepped into it and he never came back out of it. So I personally have been out into that mountain ranges looking for that archway a couple times, based on some of the descriptions that I had, and I've yet to locate it. But certainly I know if and when, I'll just say when I do find it, I am definitely bringing along a lot of equipment, EMF detectors and other things in order to try to determine what's going on. Now, me, myself, I'm not sure I would step through that. I don't want to test it.
Absolutely not.
But it was, Ron and his brother Chuck, Quinn, certainly experienced it, and they gathered a lot of the history, the local history, on that archway, and that's basically what I've based a lot of my searches on. So
interesting. So you're working on narrowing down. I mean, how big of an area are you thinking it could be in?
Oh gosh, so that area near Aravaca.
I'm sorry, is this by Superstitious Mountains?
No, it's
I
not.
have heard a lot of stuff about Superstitious Mountains.
I have been all over the Superstition Mountains, and certainly there is a lot of interesting events and things that have occurred in the Superstition Mountains, including the legend of the Lost Dutchman gold mine in that area.
That's another I have to correct myself because I said Superstitious Mountains and it's Superstition Mountains.
Well, they are superstitious.
They are superstitious.
Yeah, but no, there's in fact there's one area way back in the superstitions. It's called Rivas Ranch, and there was a gentleman, and I can't remember his first name off the top of my head right now, but Rivas was he succeeded in settling in that one valley back in there, and it's a higher elevation, because I think the superstitions go up to about 6,800 feet, so it's very temperate at those elevations. But he had set up a cabin, and he planted an apple orchard up there, and for years, hikers, including myself, would go up there and hike in and then stay at the old cabin, and then maybe eat a few apples, which were actually really good, and then hike back out. But Rivas survived in that wilderness area, mainly because he understood Apache, you know, uh, the perceptions of Apaches. So what he would do is every single night that he was up there, instead of getting attacked by Apaches, he would actually strip himself naked and, and then dance around in the apple orchard and in and around his cabin, and chant and yell and scream and so forth, because he understood that the Apaches felt that if you were a crazy person, that if you were actually uh, if you killed someone who was crazy, that because they were only crazy because they were inhabited by an evil spirit, and if you killed them, you would release that evil spirit, and it would find its home in your um, in your in the vicinity. So they left him alone. But because every night he would do the naked antler dance out there.
That's crazy.
So,
So, it's kind
yeah,
of
that's
like
the super.
the bad news and worst news. Well, we could kill him, but if we do that, it releases the spirit, and the spirit can linger around you and mess with your life, basically.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's that was the gist. But his understanding and knowledge of that uh, certainly assisted him throughout his life. But and and honestly, all the time I've spent in Arizona, I've spent a lot of times um, talking with native tribes. So I've got some friends that are part of, well, what used to be called the Papago tribe, the Tohono O'odham, down in southern Arizona, or the Pima Indians, and got a few Apaches and a few Navajo friends, and so I've gathered some of their lore, especially around anything that was Bigfoot. But back in the 70s, I was at my seventh and eighth grade. I spent actually going to a Lutheran parochial school, and it was it was a little different because when we played interscholastic sports, we really didn't have any teams that we could play against. So our basketball team would play at on Indian reservations where there was missions as well. So and that's where I made a lot of friends, and those they were and it was interesting sitting down and talking with everyone. I played I remember playing at Peridot on the San Carlos reservation, and having my new friends showing me where you can pick up peridos, which is a gemstone, actually the birthstone, I think, for August. Um,
Yes.
just
It's
off
a
the
pretty
ground.
green. Yes.
Yeah. So very, very neat, very
I
neat.
love that.
And so, you know, but hearing some of their stories, and they were talking, because I was like, well, how did this mission start, and where, I was interesting, right? I'm a pretty good interviewer of people, and I just love talking to people, and I'm a great listener. So, um, so when they told me, and this is long before I even knew the story, um, but they told me the story of the Blue Nun, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? And they said, oh, a long time ago, there was this woman that showed up to the tribe, per their oral history, and you know and made an appearance to them, and was talking to them in their language, interestingly enough. And initially they were terrified of her, and they even launched they shot arrows at her, and the arrows went straight through her, as if she was not there, but she was there. And so um, they ended up really paying attention to her, right? And so this was I heard these stories from both my Tohono O'odham friends and the Pima friends that I met, and they said that, and they had both similar stories, which is extremely interesting, right? As far as the tribe's oral history, the storyteller is a really um, a focal person on the tribe who maintains and retells and keeps their history, just like any historian that we might have graduating from college today, or hopefully. And so they tell the story of, like I said, of this woman in blue robes that appeared before them and told them and taught them about Christ, which of course, and this is in the 1600s, right? This is the early 1600s, around 1620 to 1630 time frame, and at that same time, there was a Franciscan nun that was in Spain, and which was I believe her name was Maria Jesus de Agrega, and she actually had the ability, apparently based on documentation, I mean true documentation, to bilocate. She never left Spain, but she made appearances not only in Arizona but also in New Mexico and in Texas as well. So all the tribes there actually tell the same story of the Blue Nun. And in fact, there was by the time Franciscan missionaries arrived in some of those areas, some of those Indians were already converted. And oddly enough, some of them actually had rosaries already,
Wow.
which she had basically taken along with her when she was having some of these episodes that she had. So she actually, appeared to them, and they didn't have a name for her, right? They called her the Blue Nun. They called her, the woman in blue, because the Franciscan nuns wore a blue cape, and so but it was documented, and of course, this time in Spain, this was during the time of the Inquisition, not a great landmark, but because Sister Maria had a half Jewish bloodline, she had come under, they'd come under question to her in the Inquisition, but they ended up not just kind of leaving her alone. But one of them actually opened up an inquiry into some of the things that she was saying, talking about these different Indians and the Humanos Indians and the Tejas Indian, right? Texas, right? Um, and but she had never obviously, set foot out of Spain. So that was a very interesting and it just an incredible story that was very well documented. And she ended up writing a story that was related, and I know currently she's actually still under, that she's still up for canonization because of her mystical abilities and her, and what she did or purportedly did. But like I said, it's very well documented in my opinion. So
That's really beautiful. And it reminds me of Padre Pio. He's another one that could bilocate and documented on that. But just a lovely story, and you would not expect course, I don't know what you would expect, as far as things that are miraculous and supernatural and whatnot, but to have somebody appearing like that where she was when she's not even in the same country at all, and why them, and what I mean, it's just flabbergasting. Maybe it was something that was associated to their prayers.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, even some of the Franciscan friars that, like I said, first showed up there, um, Fathers Benavides and Eustevio Kino, who was in Arizona. You know, when they, like I said, when they first approached the Indians, they were totally baffled that a lot of them had extensive knowledge of Catholic doctrines already. I mean,
Very interesting.
when they had absolutely no contact with Europeans or any other previous missionaries.
Very, very interesting.
But yeah, like I said, it was she had these, and she would go into a trance back in Spain during this period. So she would basically like be passed out, or even pass out during during prayer, and these things occurred all the way from like 1620 when she was about 18 years old up until 1631. So from 1620 to 1631, she had these episodes, and like I said, she is. I know she is a candidate for canonization by the Vatican, but I'm not exactly sure where that is in the process right now. But it's certainly a great story.
I think they're too slow on stuff like that. If there's people reporting by location, that's a pretty big deal.
Yep. Oh,
I
absolutely.
think that you have to be able, I could be wrong. I think that you have to be able to prove two miracles. Two.
Yep. Well, and she has literally hundreds of visitations, or by locations. But the thing that always interested me was the fact that the stories that I got, I won't say firsthand, but certainly from a member of the tribe, to that they actually fired arrows at her that went straight through her, but yet she was able to bring I want to say transport rosaries with her.
Right.
Across, which is an interesting concept. How does that work, right? So
So you're like a non physical being carrying physical things.
exactly. But
And that
yeah,
sounds kind of interesting because you can kind of think about, us starting off talking about a portal. There's beings that are able to move in and out of portals.
yeah.
We run into quite a bit of that. And
Well, and it's interesting. There's a lot of petroglyphs in Arizona of, what I like to call the swirl, circular swirl petroglyphs. And a lot of people say that that's a portal, right? And 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 it's very likely. I know that there is one petroglyph that has a swirl mark, but it also on summer, just on June 21st only, the shadow of a nearby rock actually lines up and points right to the center of that swirl. So which is of course summer solstice, right? So um, it's a very, very interesting concept, whether or not those petroglyphs are solar events, or representing solar things, or are they representing portals, just like the one that's down near Arivaca, Arizona.
very, very interesting. The desert itself is interesting because at first glance, the desert looks like a barren place. Nothing
Oh,
happens here. This
yep.
is always the same. Um, and that's what it looks like to an untrained eye, to someone that hasn't been there. Now, I haven't been there, I haven't hiked it or anything, but I watched a few guys that were on expeditions and stuff going through there and talking about hauntings. And that's another thing, too. You wouldn't think
Oh,
the desert's haunted, even though you know, like a lot of people die in the desert. You wouldn't think the desert's haunted. But all of these stories and legends and lore and actual occurrences and actual fear. This guy was very scared at night.
yep. Oh, Uh, and yeah. Oh gosh, some of the stories I could tell from Yuma, Arizona when I worked down there. Gosh, we had and even some of the and some of the local Indians as well down there had um, some of their stories from along the river. Now, of course, the Colorado River runs through Yuma, but it's very very active place. I'll put it that way. I know that when the Yuma, I was working for Yuma County in the old, and our offices were originally in the old courthouse there, and eventually our offices got moved over to what used to be the Yuma National Bank building in downtown Yuma, and that building was built in 1920, and yeah, I can't remember when it closed. I'll say the probably the mid 70s it closed, but the it, boy, the events that occurred there, because on that same property in 1916 there was a 3-story hotel that had been there that actually had a fire, and we would have even on a floor that didn't exist above us, you could actually hear people stampeding in the early
Mm.
morning and yelling fire, fire. You could hear this, and it wasn't just me. There'd be somebody with me or whatever, and they'd be like, what is that,
Mm.
you know? um, and um, and so that was always interesting. And there was a lady in white that and of course I know that's almost a cliche when you get into haunted buildings and structures, but uh, it, the lady in white, I never actually got to see her, but she made appearances on the third floor, or the I'm sorry, the second floor um, of the county offices that were in the former bank building there. But they they actually they'd see her down at the end of the hall, and somebody be like, well, wait a minute, what, why is that woman standing down at the end of the hall? And they'd turn back and she'd be gone, right? And this happened all the time. It was reported. But the most interesting one was when, as they were building out the uh, the bank building into the county offices, they actually had stacks of drywall uh, uh, stacked outside the building, but they had like a chain link fence with barbed wire on it around the outside. And directly behind that building was a biker bar that was there, and I knew the owner. He and the one night he was closing up that bar and came walking out, and here's this woman in a long white dress sitting on top of a stack of drywall inside the chain link barbed wire area behind the building. And he saw her up there, and he looked at her and waved, and she waved back and smiled, and he turned to lock up the bar, and when he turned back she was gone. He was like,
Wow.
I was gonna about to tell her, you probably shouldn't be in there, and she was absolutely gone. And he spent time looking for her, through the chain link, and uh, couldn't find her. But that the truly interesting one. So because I'm in computers, I was working on getting the entire building wired up for uh, actually twin coaxial. It's just unbelievable pain to run twin coaxial if you've never done that. But I actually had a crew. I had a crew that that was comprised of prisoners from the local jail, the county jail, and that was interesting. That's a story for another time. But the those some of the workers though in the basement were digging a pit in the basement of that building in order to run the elevator down to the basement floor before the elevator went in. And as they kind of uncovered things, they ended up finding up a boarded up well in the bottom of the of that building. And it was, when they were uncorking it and everything, there was some flies and stuff. And I had a little bit of like an Amityville horror flashback when I was monitoring some of that work. But the two guys who were digging that pit and putting in the foundations for the elevator, the one morning, the one guy showed up early and he was like, well, let's start getting to work. So he rolled up a wheelbarrow right up to the edge of that elevator pit, and he went down in there and he got his shovel out and he took a shovel of dirt and he went and he put it into the wheelbarrow. He went to go take a second shovel and he went to go put it into the wheelbarrow, and the wheelbarrow was moved back about 6 feet from the hole. And he was just like, what the heck? So he climbs out of the hole and he yells for his buddy, hey, if did you do this? Cut that out. You're late. Let's get to work. There was no answer in the basement. And so he goes and he rolls the wheelbarrow up to the thing thinking, well, maybe it just rolled backwards or something, even though it was flat right there. But he jumps back down in the hole. He gets one shovelful. He goes to put it back up there, and the wheelbarrow is sitting 6 feet back again. So this time he walks around the entire basement yelling and asking, and nobody's in there. Nobody's in the basement. So he goes and he rolls the wheelbarrow back up again. And this time he takes a shovelful and he goes to turn around, and there is this large, very beefy looking, I want to say an Irishman with a reddish beard and red hair, holding on to the handles of this wheelbarrow.
Wow.
And he said he could see through him.
Wow.
Except he was translucent, but he was there, and was in the process of moving the wheelbarrow back, and he ended up passing out. Well, this guy's buddy showed up about 5 minutes after that, finds his buddy passed out in the hole, and about 10 minutes later, I showed up for work, and here's an ambulance is just rolling up, and I'm just like, oh my God, what happened? And they ended up pulling him out of there, and he's talking the whole time saying, and he recounted the whole story. And I remember thinking, oh great, I get to work in the basement all the time, so, but it was, the guy he said the guy looked like a big hefty miner. That was his contention.
And that's a crazy story, and it reminds me of what we were saying earlier, because he's partially transparent.
Yes.
Okay, so he's not fully in the 3D world or present, but he can affect the wheelbarrow just fine.
Yep.
Which is not a very light object.
No.
So able to be in this world and not manifested enough to even be solid.
Right. Exactly.
Very crazy. Is that the scariest paranormal Arizona story? We might have enough time to pry that out of you. And what made you most afraid?
Oh gosh. And I'm a pretty I've got a lot of guts, I'll put it that way. Having been really close to a lot of Bigfoots, and they don't scare me anymore, but maybe they should. But from a paranormal aspect, and this will bridge all the way back to Chicago. But I had when I was a kid, I had this. I was laying in bed. And I was trying to fall asleep, and as I'm in bed, I started hearing a whispering voice, and I couldn't quite make out what it was, but I could identify it was coming from the side of my bed, and when I when I kind of got up the nerve to look over the edge of the bed, I see something kind of crouched down at by the bed, and it I want to say its back looked a little scaly, and it was uh, uh, moist. I don't know, had some kind of uh, moisture or oils or something on it, and as it I could hear it clearer as I leaned over the edge, as I looked over the edge, and it said, "I've come for you." And at that point, I actually screamed bloody murder.
That's bad.
I screamed bloody murder, and it jumped up, and it ran towards the closet door in the bedroom. And as it hit the closet door, it just went through the closet door, and the door was closed. And almost instantly, my dad came bursting into the room, turned on the lights, and he was like, "What's going on?" And I said, at that point, I'm just pointing at the closet door, and he goes over and he opens up the door and he looks, and there's nothing in there. But both myself and himself noticed that the wood grain on the door had actually, I want to say, morphed, and it looked like this creature in the wood grain on the door.
Wow.
And he says, I never noticed that before. And he's like, I can't remember that if that was there or not, right? So, of course, that night I did sleep in their bedroom, in the parents' room, but we only moved maybe about 6 months later down to Arizona. Well, fast forward all the way to about 1984, 85, somewhere in there. I had worked a night shift, and I ended up getting home, and I was so tired. I went to bed in the afternoon. I was laying on the bed, and I had this dream that my mother and I had gone back to Illinois to visit, and I was in my hometown of Elmhurst, and I'm driving her around, and she says, I wouldn't mind stopping by and seeing the old house. And I said, "Oh, sure, that'd be great." So we went up to the house, and the woman who answered the door was the people who had bought the house from us in 1972. And the woman says, "Oh, I'm heading out to the grocery store. Do you mind if I now of course I'm having this dream in Arizona, right? Would you mind actually my mom said, "Would you mind if we could look at the house?" And she said, "Oh no, I'm heading out to the grocery store. Just help, I'll be back in like 15 minutes." So it was just weird, right? She let us in the house, and so it was just my mom and I in the house. And my mom first went to went down towards the kitchen, and I was standing at the bottom of the stairs, and I was kind of looking up the stairs. Now, of course, it was interesting because the paint colors on the walls, the furniture, flooring, everything else was different in the house, right? From what I remembered. But I was kind of drawn to my old bedroom upstairs. So I went up the stairs and I walked into my bedroom. And when I did, the door closed behind me by itself. And in the corner, and this was, like I said, in 84, 85, this was before the movie Predator came out. But I remember putting my hand on my chest, and I could feel a cross underneath my shirt that a grade school friend had given me before I moved down to Arizona. And in the corner, I see something that's, I want to say, partially hidden, and it turns and it runs straight at me. Or I actually, it said, basically like you're mine, right? And I said, I'm not afraid of you. And it screeched and it ran straight at me and it hit me and it knocked me back a couple of steps.
Wow.
But when I turned around, I could see it clearly, and it was the same creature from 1972. It turned, it ran back towards that closet door, and as it ran through the closet door, all the wood grain was clear. Well, I wake up and I'm disoriented. I'm back at home, right? And I am actually in the corner with my heels up against the wall in the corner, standing on my head and with my arms crossed across my chest.
Oh my
and
God.
and I'm sweating profusely. And I ended up kind of basically sliding off the wall, from where I was doing a headstand, and and but it felt like somebody had punched me in the chest. When I actually went into the bathroom and looked at my chest, I had a big red mark in the center of my chest, but in the center was the image of that cross.
Wow.
And that cross, like I said, had been gifted in 1972. I had never worn it, but I'm telling you what, I actually went and found it, and I wore that thing for about 4 years after that, every
Wow,
day.
I don't blame you. What a story.
Yeah. So that was
What
my
a story.
scariest Arizona event, but absolutely.
So Misha's saying, did this thing leave you? So you think that this is something that's from Illinois that wasn't really attached to you, but it was attached to the house, but in a way it's attached to you, but it actually manifest in your new house?
Like I said, somehow I went from the bed into the corner of my room and was standing on my head.
Wow.
So I have no explanation for that. Although I can tell you, later that year, my mom and I drove back to Illinois to visit relatives and some of the elderly relatives. And it actually, she wanted to stop by the house, and I'm like, and we opened the door. The woman opened the door, and it was the same woman that had bought the house.
Wow.
And when I looked in the door, I saw that it looked exactly like it was from my dream. All the
Wow.
furnitures, the flooring, the paint
Wow.
colors on the walls, and I wouldn't go in the house.
I don't blame you.
No.
Absolutely, I don't blame you.
Yep.
Well, we are running out of time.
Yep, I'm sorry.
I don't have any story to top that. I'll just say right now. That's the winner. I've had some really scary, creepy things happen, but that's like insane. And I love the part where I don't want to say love the part because it was something traumatic that happened to you, but this dream, played itself out to an extent. You went back to the area, went back to the house. Oh, that's the same lady. Oh, that's the same furniture. Of course, you didn't go upstairs, which
I didn't go in the house
on you for that. No, you're like no.
But
and I was, did you ask the lady, does anything weird ever happen to you here?
I did not. I didn't ask that. But my mom stepped into the house, I know, and was talking with her. But the woman did not leave to go to the supermarket. But I just stayed outside, and I said, I'll be looking around outside. So.
Well, it was lovely to have you, as always.
Thank you.
It goes all over the place, and we just let it go where it's going to go because there's so many interesting stories. And I thought it was great today talking about Arizona and something's going on. Maybe it's me. I don't hear a lot about Arizona as far as paranormal wise. And it seems to me, and you can correct me, I can go a little bit over without being in trouble. The big haunted hubs, and maybe it's because the United States was settled this way, a lot in the north and the northeast. And then it sort of creeps across. And then there's some, like when you, as far as air, there's always some, but it seems like it dwindles.
Yep.
Or do you think that that's not?
No, there's a lot of places here, and especially, I mean, the Spaniards came up from Mexico in 1540 with Coronado's group, and there was a lot of settlements, including Native American cliff dwellings, etc. I've had some interesting experiences visiting some of those over the years as well. So it's um, Arizona is a wonderful place, and then of course then you have Sedona, and you put Sedona on there, and
Oh
it's
yes.
and portals and a lot of interesting
I,
things occur up there.
I forgot about Sedona, and there's a lot there. It's not necessarily your haunted stories, but
No,
very much your metaphysical, spiritual,
absolutely.
a lot of phenomenon and all of that.
Yep. Well,
Completely.
yeah, I was going to say at the end of this month, I'll actually be co-hosting, assisting with the BFRO expedition here in Arizona. So stay tuned for more stories from that.
Nice. And where's that going to be?
That'll be up on the Mogollon Rim in Arizona. So
Nice.
I can't disclose the location. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we have you back on a regular basis because it's just always fun and a great time with you. And, people love you. And at first, he came on a lot about mostly Bigfoot, and then we have migrated away from that and back to and away, and however it goes, because Karl is just somebody full of very interesting experiences and exceptional knowledge, and does a beautiful job speaking. And so we will have you back again very soon. And enjoy having you, and so grateful that you could come.
And prayers and love for Father Shawn. I hope he's listening, and his wife Sharon. Everybody, please pray, and I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful Independence Day celebration.
Absolutely. And to you, Carlin, thank you for coming today. It really was wonderful and special.
Yep.
Very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you want to send anybody to a website or?
You could find a lot of my reports I've written up on ghosthuntingtheories.com. And also I run the website bigfootencounters.com, which is the life work of Bobby Short that I maintain.
Lovely. That's so fabulous. All right. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful weekend. Really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thanks. Love everybody.
And I'm just going to take another minute and say the link for Sharon on GoFundMe is Join Sharon's Fight to Beat Cancer. And her full name is Sharon Whittington, of course. And then beyond that, I want to say to stay tuned for Spirit Switchboard with Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, which is coming next. And also, thank you to Joe Montaldo and Michelle DeRoche here at 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM in the Gulf Coast. Everybody, thank you so much for coming. Really enjoyed it. Have a beautiful night. Have a beautiful weekend. Stay safe, and we will see you next week.